Three friends get trapped on a ski lift high above the ground as a winter storm rolls in, and what starts as an inconvenience quickly becomes a desperate fight for survival against freezing temperatures and hungry wolves. The story follows childhood friends Dan Walker and Joe Lynch, along with Dan's girlfriend Parker O'Neill, as they arrive at a New England ski resort on a Sunday afternoon. The three friends are excited to spend the day skiing and snowboarding, but they don't want to pay full price for their tickets. Dan comes up with a plan and convinces Parker to bribe the ski lift attendant named Jason to let all three of them ride for less money. Jason agrees to the deal. As they ride up the ski lift, it suddenly stops moving. The friends feel a moment of concern, but the lift starts back up again after a short pause, and they continue their day without worry. Parker struggles with snowboarding throughout the afternoon, falling over repeatedly while Dan and Joe watch. After spending hours on the slopes, the guys want to take one final run down the mountain before heading home. By now, evening is approaching and a storm is moving toward the resort. The management decides to close early because of the incoming weather. Dan reminds Jason about the bribe they paid earlier. The three friends convince him to let them on the ski lift one last time, even though the resort is nearly empty now. Jason agrees and starts the lift for them. However, before they reach the top of the mountain, Jason gets called into his boss's office. A coworker named Rifkin takes over his position at the ski lift controls. As Jason leaves, he tells Rifkin that there are only 3 skiers left on the mountain, and after they come down, he can shut everything down for the night. This is where everything goes wrong. Another group of 3 skiers comes down the mountain right after Jason leaves. Rifkin sees these 3 skiers and assumes they are the ones Jason mentioned. He shuts down the ski lift, not realizing that Dan, Joe, and Parker are still suspended high above the ground in their chair. At first, the friends are just annoyed. They think the lift has experienced another technical problem like earlier in the day. They wait, expecting the lift to start moving again at any moment. But minutes pass, and then the lights across the entire resort suddenly go out. Fear starts to creep in as darkness surrounds them and snow begins to fall. The storm has arrived. They shout for help, but their voices are swallowed by the wind and snow. A snowcat vehicle appears below them, and for a moment, hope flares up. The driver, a man named Cody, operates the vehicle on the slope beneath them. The friends scream and wave frantically, certain he will see them. But at the last second, Cody gets called back to base over his radio. He turns the snowcat around and drives away, never looking up. The friends watch in disbelief as their rescue disappears into the darkness. Hours pass. The cold becomes unbearable. The friends huddle in their chair, trying to stay warm, but the temperature continues to drop. As the night drags on, they begin to understand the horrible truth of their situation. The resort is closed on weekdays, which means no one will be back until Friday. It's Sunday night. They could be stuck on this lift for 5 days in sub-freezing temperatures. Parker smokes a cigarette to calm her nerves, but in her shaking hands, she drops her right glove. She watches helplessly as it falls into the darkness below. Now one of her hands is exposed to the brutal cold. Dan realizes they cannot wait for rescue. If they stay in the chair until Friday, they will freeze to death long before then. He makes a terrible decision. He decides to jump from the ski lift to the ground below and get help. Joe tries to stop him, but Dan knows it's their only chance. He positions himself and jumps. Dan hits the ground hard on a section of the ski path. The impact is devastating. Both of his legs break on landing, with bones piercing through his skin in a compound fracture. He screams in agony, unable to move. Blood stains the white snow around him. Parker and Joe watch in horror from above, unable to help him. Dan lies in the snow, writhing in pain. Then something moves in the darkness beyond him. A wolf emerges from the trees, its eyes reflecting what little light remains. The animal approaches Dan slowly, growling. Parker acts on instinct and throws her snowboard down at the wolf. The board hits near the animal, and it runs back into the darkness. The friends breathe a temporary sigh of relief. But the wolf doesn't leave. It was just retreating to bring reinforcements. Soon, more wolves emerge from the forest. A whole pack surrounds Dan as he lies helpless in the snow. Joe sees what's about to happen and quickly covers Parker's eyes, holding her tightly in the chair. Dan's screams echo through the night as the wolves attack him. The sounds are horrific. Parker struggles against Joe, but he holds her, preventing her from seeing her boyfriend being torn apart and devoured by the pack. The screams eventually stop. Morning comes. Parker wakes up to discover that her right hand, the one without a glove, has frozen to the metal safety bar of the ski lift chair. She had grabbed it in her sleep. She realizes she has to pull it free, and she does, crying out in pain as skin tears away from her hand, staying stuck to the frozen metal. Her face has also developed severe frostbite. Dark patches of damaged tissue mark her skin. The situation is desperate. Dan is dead. They are still trapped. Joe knows he has to do something. He looks at the cable stretching between the chairs and makes his decision. He climbs up onto the top of their chair and begins to traverse across the cable, moving hand over hand toward a chair that is closer to a support pole. He can climb down the pole's maintenance ladder if he can reach it. The cable cuts into Joe's hands as he moves across it. Blood drips from his palms onto the snow far below. After moving just a few feet, the pain becomes too intense. He returns to the chair where Parker waits, his hands severely cut. He wraps his arms around her, and they hold each other in their grief and fear. Below them, what remains of Dan lies scattered in the snow, surrounded by paw prints and blood. Time passes. Joe knows he has to try again. Later that day, he climbs back up and starts traversing the cable once more. This time, he pushes through the pain. The cable continues to slice deep into his damaged hands, but he keeps moving. He reaches the chair 2 positions back and carefully climbs down the side toward the support pole. He makes it to the pole and descends the maintenance ladder safely to the ground. At the same moment Joe reaches the ground, Parker's chair begins to make ominous creaking sounds. The chair starts to tip. The mechanism holding it to the cable has loosened from the strain and the cold. Parker grips the safety bar, terrified the chair will fall. On the ground, Joe faces a new problem. 2 wolves emerge from the trees, approaching him. He grabs a ski pole left in the snow and uses it to fight them off, jabbing at them when they get too close. He spots Parker's snowboard nearby and picks it up. The wolves lunge at him, and Joe slides down the mountain on the snowboard as fast as he can, the wolves chasing him through the trees. Another night passes. Parker remains alone in the tipping chair, freezing and injured. No one comes. Morning arrives again, and she realizes that something terrible has happened to Joe. He never made it to get help. She is completely alone now. Parker decides she has no choice but to jump. She prepares herself, but as she shifts her weight, the bolt holding the chair to the cable finally gives way. The chair drops suddenly about 20 feet before catching on a support cable. The drop is violent and terrifying, but it brings the chair much closer to the ground. From this lower height, Parker can jump safely. She positions herself and lets go, but as she lands, the chair breaks free completely and falls on top of her, striking her ankle. She cries out in pain, now injured but at least on the ground. Parker begins the agonizing journey down the mountain. She alternately slides and crawls through the snow, her injured ankle making every movement torture. As she moves through the trees, she sees a long streak of blood in the snow. She follows it with her eyes and sees a wolf watching her from nearby. The wolf approaches slowly, sizing her up. Parker freezes, unable to run or defend herself. The wolf studies her for a long moment, then turns and walks back toward the rest of its pack. Parker sees them in the distance, gathered around something. She realizes with horror that they are feeding on what remains of Joe. He made it down the mountain but never made it past the wolves. Completely traumatized and broken, Parker continues crawling and sliding. She forces herself to keep moving, leaving the wolves and the bodies of her friends behind. Finally, after what feels like hours, she reaches a road at the base of the mountain. She lies on the cold pavement, barely conscious. Time passes. Then she hears an engine. A car appears, slowing down as it approaches. A man gets out and rushes to her side. He sees her injuries, her frostbitten face, and her desperate condition. He immediately calls the hospital on his phone, telling them he has found a girl severely injured outside the ski resort. As Parker lies there, being helped by this stranger, she hears Dan's voice in her mind. She remembers him telling her, "You'll be okay."